Welcome to Carl DeGregorio's death session. This is the second time, and I guess it's good I got it out of my system. But this is the second time that I've run through this fucking thing and was speaking to the ether by myself, no audience, because I didn't press the fucking space bar. And I guess that's a good thing, because most of what I was talking about, which I will not try to regurgitate, most of what I was talking about was my lack of wishing I was not where I was at today. Meaning, I am meeting a deadline for this death session because I think it's 48. It might be 49. But I am on a mission to do this accountability vlog for 52 weeks, which is a year's worth of weeks. I, a long time ago, started a blog. I tried to do one column, quote unquote, a week, and I was cooking for a while, and then you find out that, that's not as easy as you think, because you got to look for themes and stuff like that. And my theme in the second phantom death session of me talking, and then when I hit the space bar, it started, and I thought I was done, and I was on a rant, and I was talking about how I have not been able to do this on my usual day, and that I was boiling and roiling this week without that outlet. So it's at least the positive take from that is that I need this, because it helps me get some of this shit out of my head. And when I skip the day to do it, and have to chase a deadline, it has an impact. So that means this is either helping me to such a degree that it is necessary for my process, or that other things are going on, which maybe is the case too. I know when I've had a conversation recently with my brother, and we spoke about I guess purity of cause, purity of effort. And he basically pays attention, which is great. But he said, well, at your own words, you said that in just doing it in and of itself is the value. And that is true. If you're going to, ask me what my pure heart was. But that's not true, because you have to have you have to show your work, like in old math class, and you have to have a body of work to point to if you ever do get an opportunity to be Googled or searched or found. So and I could no longer sit on the sidelines of I'm not doing as much. I'm not doing stand-up these days, so I can't always have something to invite someone to, and the one-man show is a big shining emblem on the hill, and I'm finding out now that I'm in step 2, which is I think I have a stage-worthy product. I'm in stage 2. I have to produce it, and in this keeping it on track, the death session, being able to next step it is I've looked into someone made a great suggestion about a theater in Santa Monica that is available, and but it has to go through an application process, which they expect after many years after COVID being shut down. They expect a high volume, and in the process there are these criteria that you have to show the production staff that you will be able to pull this off, and yet it's still not free. So wouldn't it, my frustration is I just want to rent it, and if I bomb, you still get your money. So, but I guess there's a reputation of the space, and they want to have some inkling of narrative, creative consultation. They want to be able to stand behind the work that goes up. I understand that to a degree, but I'd imagine other theater productions, singing song, unless your thing is locked and loaded, I guess this wouldn't be a place to premiere, because if I have to have a production staff, I don't have that yet. And so now this application seems a lot more daunting. And yet eventually you need to assemble it, but you need a date, a theatrical. You don't ask people to come to work for a production without the dates of production to ask them. So it's sort of that catch-22, that whole, the whole equity card, SAG card paradox of you can't work here without this, but you need to get, it's just that whole process is now rearing its head. And so maybe I'm looking for more of a straight rental where they don't care, which is kind of how it went in New York. They didn't really care. We just walked in, plunked down a check, and then scampered to make our opening night. And that was what I was attempting to do here, but now with the application. And then there's some editorial stuff, and they want some of the an eye on diversity, which I would hope would mean in the selection through the year, not every single one. And I have a diverse story, but I am not a diverse delivery system, Although in the big pie of human existence, you have to include guys like me, I would hope. And that, is part of the process of figuring out if any of this is all worth it. And now I'm settling back into what was the theme of the last one, which maybe is a good thing I didn't put out there. I am chasing a deadline. I am not thrilled about that. I needed to do this when I needed to do it. There's reasons I couldn't. And now I'm up against it, chasing a deadline, trying to keep a streak. And that in and of itself is really only a benefit to me, and maybe not this not being one of my proudest moments. And I don't want to have too many of those. And we have to grow up, and we have to, do what we say we're going to do. And being low mood is not a good excuse. And maybe it is. I don't know. And I don't like to show this side. One of the things that came up this week was everybody, obviously this is low fidelity. I've had moments. Last week I had a moment in the session where I got emotional, and I had a clip of that I was going to use as the sort of social media loss leader, the way to try to get people to this, which hasn't been working anyway. So the debate was, do I put that out there? And the question is, with the filtered realities and with the filtered avatars and AI and everything being packaged for optimization, you also hear that people are looking for something authentic, except when it's you. When it comes to me, yeah, let's go authentic. But this stuff can be used against you, or if you do show vulnerability, and this would be the one they saw, then all they see is a hyper vulnerable person, a guy struggling with Session48. And it's hard because when you're working on spec for your whole life, you don't have the reputation of 5 albums and 3 of them are brilliant and 4 of them are really, one of them's really good, and then you got your mulligan. I don't have that luxury, and maybe that's an unnecessary pressure I put on myself, certainly for a vlog on YouTube. But I was trained in a classical way, and so everything is forward-facing. Everything is proper speech, proper rehearsal, being off book. There were so many non-negotiables that the laissez-faire attitude of the internet, or I just don't know where I fit in, right? Because dog videos and cat videos are going to move the needle, and thoughtful think pieces are probably more for the written word and for the intelligentsia. And so I've always occupied this nether region, and so I question my I just question everything. And I'm struggling this week. And so that vulnerability and that truth is only true, but not necessarily productive, and not necessarily, I'm not seeking anything. And so I guess the big step for the show this week was I tried to get back on track. I have to start figuring out a way to produce this one-man show. And I am still figuring out next steps. And I guess I also have just spent the energy to record something that didn't get put down. And like I said, maybe that was a bleaker thing to share. And I don't want to be the bleaker vlogger. But, you know, I don't know. I was saying before, which I don't want to try to regurgitate because it won't be as vivid, but I saw a video of Meryl Streep rehearsing at the Public Theater, I think, because George C. Wolfe was the director. And guess what? She's an actress just like many of us. And it's early in the rehearsal process. And George C. Wolfe is getting up and he's like, no, maybe you cross here. Maybe. So they're doing the blocking stuff. And so the greatest actor we know is just marking it or just reading it or confused and just saying words and then and not smoking everybody else on stage. And that's the truth. And we don't get to see that. And I don't know what the value is other than to prove it, that everybody's human. But as we get further and further away from being appreciative of each other as human, flawed, imperfect, I don't know that there's any value in showing vulnerability, weakness, and or if you're the selector, you know, then you're being self-damaging. You know, I know this is true, that at one point in his life, Eddie Van Halen didn't know how to play a C chord. Or at one point in his life, Prince sucked at guitar and had to teach himself the pentatonic scale. And we don't have any proof that that's true. All we have is the greatest solo ever seen at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when Prince plays On My Guitar Gently Weep, a song he didn't know previously. Did you know that he didn't even know that George Harrison song? And that he taught himself the guitar. I mean, obviously, once you hear the chords and stuff, but he played the solo, and that's what you see for all time. And who wants to watch somebody playing scales on their childhood bed? Nobody wants to watch that. This is why I am torn. Like, this is my version of the scales, right? An actor can't really show you the scales because an actor has to come to the marketplace intact to get a role. I guess the audition tapes, sometimes you'll see those. But all I'm saying is the value in culture is that these geniuses came out of the womb playing fucking Little Wing, and that's not true. And I guess it's just been a longer apprenticeship for me than I wish to have been in. And so putting this stuff out is a debatable thing. And being pure-hearted about doing it for the sake of doing it is a debatable thing. And I don't mean to have this debate in front of you. The idea that this was just an accountability blog, and it was true to a degree, but I also like high concept. And so the idea that why would you watch someone talk for the sake of talking if it wasn't a how-to, if it wasn't a reaction channel, if it wasn't an unwrapping channel, if it wasn't me doing gossip or any of the things that work on the internet for a forward-facing vlog, then at least it would be a narrative through however long it would take me to get to production. That was still the idea of providing some kind of narrative to make this view-worthy. And so, of course, if it got nowhere, I'd still do it, right? But at a certain point, these things aren't complete. A song has to be heard. It's very kind of, there are two schools of thought. I guess Malcolm Gladwell says that Somewhere in This World is the best novel you've never read in the drawer somewhere. And that's hopefully the notion that we all have for one another, But certain things like performing arts have to sort of be seen in their time. And so I guess I am lamenting my lack of progress this week. And like I said, I don't know that there's any value right now, except that I'm going to finish and I'm going to say what I got to say this week. But, you don't get a mulligan, you don't, if this would be the only death session anyone saw, they wouldn't maybe think of it as value added. And you're only but that's part of our culture too, is if you never see Eddie Van Halen struggle on the guitar. You only see him as a intact genius, and then that gets presented, and so it winds up discouraging people from starting, because he's a genius. He literally, he played that Eruption solo when he first found a guitar. He played it on an acoustic, and that's not true. Where genius kicks in is he may have not known a C chord, but he may have figured it out in a week's time, Also, when you're young and you don't have a job and you're in your bedroom and your parents pay all the bills, you get to put in those hours. But I'm not bagging on the guy. The guy was a genius, and there's an equal amount of time spent on a guitar isn't going to make everybody Eddie Van Halen, But it's the idea. And so seeing Meryl Streep sort of flummoxed in rehearsal, it was a very encouraging thing to remind me. I don't know that she's thrilled about that video existing, because you should only be judged by the final product. But even Meryl Streep doesn't get to be in the editing room, and an actor is literally a powerless instrument to the editing and to the director and to the script. And so she knows that better than anyone. And she's brave enough to be an explorer, and that's what she was doing in rehearsal. And she has a reputation. So she, watching Meryl Streep struggle, at least she's riveting, right? And I think maybe all of us would be if we had that same package of circumstance. But this is what is happening now, and I'm just trying to make sure I don't miss a death session, because I promised myself I'd get to 52, and I 52 weeks, right? That's a year. Or issues of Sports Illustrated is how I remember that. I think there's 72, because they gave you bonus issues. 65, I don't remember, but I never knew there were 52 weeks in a year until I bought my own subscription or something. Maybe I knew that. I don't know. But I hope I can get my act together for the next death session. I want to be productive. I want to say important things. I want to mean what I say. My battery's running out. So this will be a short but not so sweet struggle through death session 48 or 49. And peace. Carl DeGregorio, death session. Peace.